This is a disclaimer. This podcast features four professional idiots who share their insights and anecdotes. This podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only. This podcast represents the opinions of the guests and should not be taken as medical, legal, or professional advice.
All right. Number 2. Lucky number 2. This will work now.
Who does number 2 work for?
You show that turd who's boss. God, I gotta rewatch that. Sean watched our brother watched that movie on repeat.
That Austin Powers?
Daily, yeah. And it holds up surprisingly well because I'd seen it a couple years ago.
It absolutely holds up.
It's very self-aware. And as always, we are waiting on Ramon. Yeah, 9:30 means 10 o'clock. Got it. Yeah, all right, I'm going to go let him in. Can you kick the cat out?
Wait, my friend.
No, he's so annoying, though.
Really?
He's the most friendly, obnoxious cat.
Freddy? Speaking of friendly, obnoxious, if you hear large dog barking, got Coda over still, so.
Oh, nice.
Seemingly they're going to behave, but maybe they won't.
Bye, Freddy.
Clearly, you just threw something. He's like, that's the thing. He's kind of dumb, but he's very friendly. He's like, oh, you threw something. I'll go see what that was. Like you'd work to it would on a dog.
Yeah.
Well, hey, it's like Coda. My God, are you dumb? But at least you're cute.
Welcome, listeners, to Overqualified Idiots. Man, I'm tired this morning. So, I am Dan Casey. I, almost forgot my name. I was going to introduce myself, and my brain was like, where do we keep that? Yeah, so I'm Dan Casey, MD, and I am joined by Ramon, PharmD.
Yo, hello, hey.
Ben, our local resident rocket engineer.
Hello.
And Patrick Casey, Esquire.
You could also call me JD. Either way.
JD?
Juris Doctor.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
Wait. So PharmD is like pharmacist doctorate. You know, it's in English. And then lawyers are like, oh no, we're going to keep it in Latin.
100%. Just like doctors. Yeah.
Isn't pharmacy still Latin root?
No. The pharmacist doctorate is the invention of the 90s, so we weren't talking so much Latin then.
We weren't talking Latin.
We weren't talking no Latin then.
Yeah.
I don't know why that one got me.
Meanwhile, so actually, as an aside, the most qualified I could be is to have my professional engineer, which doesn't exist for aerospace.
Oh, are you able to get a master's?
Oh, absolutely. There's a professional engineering certificate that electrical has, mechanical has, civil has. Nope, we don't have those.
You should just put on your business card, just good at math and stuff. I gotta get the point across.
So, listeners, if this is your first time tuning in, this is a podcast where four friends, professionals, come together, share experiences, funny stories, basically our hot takes on things, and just generally shooting the breeze. Because, as the name implies, we're very well trained. We have a lot of education under our belt, but we're just regular dumb guys. And so we've got some funny stories to share. So the theme for today is meaningful moments. Now, I don't want people to be confused that when I say meaningful, I don't mean necessarily profound. Like, oh man, this is going to change my outlook on life. Or if it does, maybe it's not necessarily in the best of ways. So basically, actually, I guess we should start with small talk. How's everybody doing?
Not hungover?
I'm just tired.
It's a very
content.
It's a very lazy Sunday. How you doing, Pat?
Fine. Everything's fine. Just fine.
How are you?
I'm good. We have a place to live for the next coming year. That was a big stressful thing on my mind. So to always have that situation squared away, because we still rent. The housing market right now is absolutely insane at the time of this recording. And we really don't see anything on the market we want to spend. Like, we were just waiting for the bubble to crash and then buy a mansion for like 12 cents. Like, that's pretty much where we're at. So when that happens, we'll be good. But in the meantime, it's really nice to have that like load. Like, I feel like housing and financial and I guess just work and employment issues are like the biggest stressors that I'm so happy when they're just gone. So yeah, I'm doing great. But yeah, as far as meaningful moments, I guess
You said gone. You said gone. You said gone.
Gone, correct.
I'm gonna break something to you. Maybe this will be a meaningful moment for all three of you. They never go away. They seem to just multiply as you get older. So just so you're all, like not living in happy land, like, oh gosh, I got this issue resolved, so everything's gonna be things. I can be happy now. No, you can just be happy all the time. Those things seem to work themselves out, especially with smart people. I mean,
Oh, that's true. I mean, what is your alternative? You just, I'm going to be homeless. No, you obviously are going to figure that out. It's just stressful in the process. But thank you for bringing that very uplifting, life-changing, tidbit.
Yeah.
But I guess I could start it off. So my story, I think I've told this probably 24 times because every single time I meet someone new and I'm amongst friends, they always say, "Hey, tell the yeah, I know story." And so this goes back to when I was an intern. Ben, you already know.
Yes.
And so when I was an intern year is the meat and potatoes of a lot of residencies, and it's really where you get a lot of your foundational knowledge and your training. And you spend most of your time in the hospital working 80 hours a week. It's very stressful, and it's a lot of commitment and a lot of sacrifice. Near the end of intern year, you kind of get a good feel for what you're doing. You start to feel really, comfortable and confident in your decisions. There's still like holes in your knowledge gaps that you need to fill, but you generally are starting to, get a handle on it. And I remember I was on inpatient in our in-service where you're in the hospital, and we had this patient. We were working with, to give some context, this patient was 380 pounds, and a year before that, he was pushing 600. So in a period of like 6 months or 8 months, he had lost an entire large person and was still a very large person. 380 pounds. So to lose that much weight, that obviously sends off a lot of red flags. He wasn't trying to lose weight. And so obviously that's abnormal. Turns out he had pretty advanced pancreatic cancer. He had something like maybe a month to live. It was one of those processes that probably been ongoing for quite a while, and it's a very aggressive form of disease with a very high mortality rate, even when you catch it early. And so basically we worked with palliative and hospice in the hospital as this was worked up, diagnosed, and we found out, it's the worst possible thing it could be. This guy was in good spirits. He generally wasn't like a very demanding or pushy person. He was just kind of in his lane and sort of went about his day and went about his life. He liked food. I don't know that you can get up to that size if you don't. And that was his prerogative, his priorities. Is just like, I could still eat, right? And I'm like, well, as long as your intestines aren't blocked, yeah. So we have this internal medicine doctor who I think was rotating on either their palliative or hospice service. I don't really remember. And I was in charge. It was really probably like the day that we figured out this was the diagnosis. And we have this lengthy discussion, we have essentially family meetings. Well, he didn't have any close family, so it was really just us talking to him. And it was a really lengthy discussion. He didn't have a lot of questions, which was strange to me. I didn't get the impression he didn't understand, but I was surprised he didn't really have a whole lot to ask us. And so, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes, like these sometimes go to be like hour-long or multi-hour long meetings. It's maybe like 20 minutes and we like walked out. And I was like, it's like that scene from Scrubs where I think it's Dr. Cox says to JD, or I can't remember the context, but he's just like, you need to know the patient understands they're going to die because they're going to cling to whatever little scrap of hope you give them. It's like we didn't say you're going to die. Like, does he know? Like, he knows those words in that order? You're supposed to, like, that's just the thing. You're supposed to say that. You're supposed to, like, you are going to die. There's nothing we can do.
Don't sugarcoat it or anything like that.
And so this doc, who clearly he was like a third year, he was like about to be graduated and done. He obviously had a job lined up and he was burnt out and checked out. He just leans into the doorway. He goes, "Hey, Mr. So-and-so, you know you're going to die, right?" And the guy, he just says, "Yeah, I know." Like, and Doctor leads out. He's like, "Yeah, see?" And he just walks away. And I just struck, just jaw the floor, like, what just happened? What did I just witness? Like, there wasn't anyone else in the hallway, but that would be like an amazing HIPAA violation, like, of ridiculous proportion. But also, who talks to people like that?
Callously.
And who takes information like that? So, yeah, I know. I mean, not to make the stereotypical fat guy voice, but it was kind of true. I just feel like the stereotypical fat guy voice is a lot of like bees, like biscuits. But yeah, what was the comment? It was like the next day. It was like, "Hey, did you have a good lunch?" It was like, "Oh yeah." He's just kind of a high energy guy. It was like, especially about food.
Beautiful, even up until the end, it seems like.
Yeah. I will remember that story forever, and I've retold it many, many times. Not in probably as that much detail, but that's my, like, that shade. I was like, man, you can get away with a lot as a doctor if you don't give a damn. And you know, some people really can stay in their lane. Some people, as long as they have the thing that makes them happy, everything else is cool. And so I guess that was my meaningful moment to share, at least my dumb one.
All right. I will tease this. Are we going to get the story?
Oh God, I don't even know if you can say that phrase, because technically when I talk about HIPAA, because if there's information, I'll just bleep it and keep it in.
I was going to say, are we going to get the bleep story?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. I can't say that phrase because you can Google that and his information will come up.
Fair.
You cannot tell patient information that is easily identifiable. That's kind of like a clause in HIPAA. So yeah, you can't give full names, you can't give date of birth, you can't give social patient identification numbers. That's all obvious. But if you know somebody, oh yeah, he had an eye patch, a right hook, and a big tattoo of like Nixon on his calf, like that's identifiable information. You can't talk about patients like that. And so for him, because you can literally, I can't give that information.
Interestingly, that is why. So, like, for all the astronauts that have been to space, there is such a small number of them. That's why you will never see big studies done about medical studies done about astronauts who have been to space, because there's so few of them.
Oh, that makes sense. It's readily identifiable information.
It's not a big enough pool where it's not right. Oh, it was a female. Well, that reduces it down to like under half.
If you narrow it down to like 12 people, yeah, that's a problem.
There's just not enough, like, especially like women's studies, like, you know, that kind of stuff in space, like medical stuff. There's like, I'm not going to get this exact number, but there's under 50 women from the NASA program and like ESA and such who have been to space. So you can't do those studies because they would just be blatant HIPAA violations the entire time.
That's kind of why I'm excited for, like, if space travel becomes recreational, like your everyman can go to space. I know that's not probably in our lifetime or anywhere near the near future, but like when space travel becomes common enough for those doors to open and see what those studies show. Because right now, what we understand is like gravity destroys your body. Gravity just absolutely destroys it. And we live in a use it or lose it world, and your bones and your muscles are the same way. People literally come back with like osteoporosis after long missions if they don't take the proper, like the early space missions were horrible in terms of like, I forget what it's called, not gravity sickness, but it has a name, of people having like electrolyte imbalances, feeling dizzy, literally not able to adjust to actually being on land, kind of like sea legs, like people come from sea and they don't feel right on flat ground. But apparently significantly worse. Like apparently like the worst version of vertigo you can have.
Yeah, space goods.
It also affects like your eyes weirdly, and like your inner ear gets all messed up.
Yeah, your inner ear and your vestibular system and your eyes and your proprioception and where you feel you are in space, they all work together. That's why, like, as a concussion specialist, I address all of those systems separately because they all work together. And if one is wonky, the whole system's flawed. I mean, that's why you spin in a chair, you stop spinning in a chair, and your inner ear is telling your brain, oh, we're still moving, and your eye says, no, the fuck we're not. And your brain goes, oh no, we've been poisoned, vomit. Like, that's the response. And that's like what happens in concussion. And to some degree, I don't really know the mechanism behind it, why that happens like when people come back from space.
Huh. Well, learn something new.
Yeah, there's a fun little tidbit. But anyway, stories.
I got mushrooms in my house.
What? What? Why?
I got mushrooms in my house. Yeah. Woke up the other day on Friday, and I've just been gone a lot working. It's been kind of a crazy week at the pharmacy. My wife and I, we bought our house coming up on 1.5 years or so. So we're new homeowners. We rented for years, but homeownership is a new level of maintenance and stuff you got to do. There's always something, and I'm learning that the hard way. So I woke up Friday and went to an area of the house. We have 2 bathrooms, and there's a bathroom that's by the bedroom that we don't really use that often. And I walked past it, and I saw mushrooms coming out of the baseboard.
Jeez.
I didn't think a whole lot of it immediately at first, but then I took a double take and went, whoa, there's mushrooms growing out of my baseboard. Yikes. So I immediately went into investigative mode, started looking all around, and I found a slow drip under the bathroom sink that has probably been dripping for maybe several months. And so at this point, I had my uncle come out and help me shut the water off to the sink. So he stopped the leakage. So we're in the process now of getting a mold team out to go bust open that wall, and hopefully there's not too much mold.
Oh no!
Fixing the plumbing,
no!
rebuilding the wall.
Oh god! So how's paying those student loans going?
Yeah.
Now?
So that was my meaningful story recently, to make sure that I check all of the faucets and plumbing every 6 months or so in my house. Home ownership is there's a lot of responsibilities there.
Yeah, I think about we rent a decent sized house, and there's just a lot of parts of the house we don't use. Yeah. That's something that could happen at any moment, at any time, in any place. So that's wild.
Yeah,
you're just lucky that you don't live in a place where it like freezes. Because like if I guess you may learn this more so, but like if you've only ever rented before a, 1 bathroom or like 2 bathroom where you use both of them, that kind of thing, you don't think about the fact that if it's a bathroom with an outdoor wall, and you don't use it for months, those pipes can still freeze.
Yeah, and burst like someone I know.
And that gets bad.
Do you know where your emergency water shutoff valve is?
I did. I learned that from this last session.
There you go.
But the next word of wisdom I'll pass on for us collectively, and Pat already knows this. He's a longtime homeowner. He's actually an adult. But make sure to check all of your faucets and plumbing for leaks.
Oh god!
Don't eat bathroom mushrooms.
What's that?
Don't eat bathroom mushrooms.
Yeah, that's also good advice.
Were you tempted? Did they look like normal mushrooms?
I was just embarrassed.
Yeah, I get that. I feel that.
I told my brother about it, and he's like, I'm going to call you Super Mario now, right?
How big were these? Were they like tiny mushrooms?
No, yeah, they were like little tiny mushrooms coming out of the baseboards.
But they had bulbs. They had the stalk and head to them.
It was a slow drip that was mostly in the it was coming from a pipe that was kind of jutting out of the wall to go into the sink. And so there's a gasket that failed, and it was just a slow drip. And some of the water was falling out into the floor of the bathroom, and obviously some of it was falling back into the wall. But it's a really subtle drip, and we didn't notice it until there were mushrooms coming out of the baseboard.
There are mushrooms in my house.
So now there's mushrooms in my house. So hopefully not for much longer.
I was thinking that this was going to take a completely different turn as a pharmacist. Like, I have mushrooms in my house, and I'm like, did you have a bad trip, or where are we going here?
Sounds like it, right? I wish it'd be a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to get my insurance claims going.
Oh God! In insurance, fighting insurance companies and doing that, it's always hours of time, whether it's on hold or being transferred or fighting people. God, I hate those phone calls, just because now I'm at a point in time, in my life where my time is valuable, And I feel like so frustrated dealing with those people. Those people.
Yeah, thankfully my agent's really good, and
Oh, good.
but I this is just the first step of trying to get it all organized.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a major project. And on the flip side, I guess we're going to get new carpets and stuff, so that's nice.
Mandated home improvement.
Yeah, there we go. How about that?
Oh man, that is a very meaningful moment. It's like
monetary the plumbing in your house.
I've got one that's a little bit less. It was meaningful, and it's the moral of the story up front is everybody struggles, and it doesn't matter how, everybody struggles. And this is on a more serious note. College was rough for me. I was one of those people who didn't have any problem in high school, like breezed through it, got A's, didn't have to study, got A's, fine. Yeah, that doesn't work in college at all. And so I struggle bust. And come to my senior year, which was absolutely not after 4 years, and I'm talking to a friend who does, as far as I knew, did very well. And they, basically had a heart-to-heart, and they're like, Ben, like, my freshman and sophomore year were bad. And that was shocking news to me, because I had thought they were always just a great student in college, because that's kind of what I had always seen them as. And they're like, no, my freshman and sophomore year were bad. So, just because you have some rough stuff, you can still keep going. It's everybody struggles, and just got to keep pushing. And then I, had very successful senior year. So, yeah.
Oh, good, man. I'm glad you bounced back. I'd like to backpack on that just a tiny bit, if I can. My senior year was the year our father passed away.
Yes.
And I would just add that basically people struggle in different ways. That everyone struggles. I don't think anybody, I think everybody would agree with that. But sometimes how people endure it and how people struggle looks very different. Because my father passed away January 10th, and so I was halfway through my senior year. And all I did was I took that little ball of pain and put it in my back pocket and said, I'll deal with you later. And I threw myself into school. I had a part-time, I call it part-time because I remember Ramon asking, he's like, how many hours are you working? I'm like, 36. He's like, well, yeah, I guess that's part-time. And so I worked nearly a full-time job, was taking 18 credit units, had a senior thesis project that was probably taking like 10 hours a week. And so basically I was working like 6 to 8 every day, 6 days a week, to basically just distract myself and keep myself focused. And yeah, I had good grades. I did well. I studied. I went to the gym. On the surface, I looked fine. But I was literally overloading and burning myself out to just not acknowledge and deal with that. And my then girlfriend at the time basically realized this was happening and told me, go to counseling. It was like one of those, like, it's not a suggestion, just do it. And I did. And I didn't realize my coping mechanism was literally just like distract myself, put myself into this state of busyness to where I literally couldn't acknowledge that I was hurting, that I was grieving. And so, yeah, everybody, it's like that I think it's Robin Williams. Everybody's fighting a battle. You have no idea about it. So be kind. And everybody is struggling. And I just don't think we all struggle the same way. And sometimes it's not as obvious. If you are one of those people out there who's struggling, I do strongly recommend reaching out, whether it's to a loved one or a professional counselor. Those tools, those resources, I don't think are nearly as stigmatized as they used to be in the past, especially in this country. Reaching out for help isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you need help, and this is how you go about it. So don't hesitate. Take care of yourself and keep yourself in mind, because especially as somebody in like healthcare profession, I can't take care of other people if I'm not taking care of myself. And I think that can be said for any job or profession. Thanks for sharing, Ben. I'm glad that you for sharing that, and I'm glad that you're here and doing well and powered through and got to a better place.
Well, On that note,
Don't
I
change.
thought I
All
was
right.
going to be the serious one in this one, but actually, to
That's usually your
kind
MO.
of, I know, right? Kind of to go off the same thing, and you didn't, get to meet Grandpa Casey, right?
No, I didn't. If I did, I was too young to remember.
Yeah, he passed away in 1990, I believe.
Oh yeah, he passed away. I think the summer before I was born.
It would have been this spring, but yeah,
This spring.
yeah,
Yeah.
close enough. And so my way of coping was to, and this is a meaningful moment, but it's also in the same vein of both of what you just talked about, is I read On Death and Dying by Kubler-Ross as a book report for my sixth grade
Oh.
class.
Phenomenal.
Yep. Uh-huh. So far be it for me to pick. I'd read Walden's Pond that year too, believe it or not. Henry David Thoreau. Yeah. I had finished, all of the Lord of the Rings by that age. So I think my vocabulary was pretty high. Those Iowa basic tests, I was out off the charts on those. I was in college level, reading comp stuff at that point. So I wasn't.
So what happened to you? God.
Why do you have to be such a jerk? Anyways, so I read Kubler-Ross as a way to try to, cope analytically, obviously, with the loss of a loved one, someone who was in my life and a constant. And he was trying to make up through me what he didn't do with his own son. And so he was like second dad because they coached me up in baseball, both my father and my grandfather, when I was growing up. And he was in remission from the time that I was born, passed away. Well, haven't gotten there yet. And his cancer was in remission until 89. And so I got the benefit of having him in my life and having that support. And so that was the first time that I had lost a loved one. So I did it by reading that book. And I'll tell you that book is why I'm good at everything that I do. Those premises that permeate all of our lives and when we suffer a loss. And it doesn't have to be the loss of a loved one. It can be the loss of a relationship. It can be the loss of a friendship. It can be the loss of a job, or even the loss, I guess, of like your perception of yourself or someone else through whatever experience that might be. Because I mean, I could come up with 17 meaningful moments where my perception changed about myself, another person, and you go through that process even in those circumstances because it changes the way you look at the world. And so I have that book and the books that they've created since. I would highly recommend to anybody who is struggling, going through a transition in their life, going through significant change or loss of something, because they help. And I mean, therapy is something that has helped me at different times in my life. And I'm a big, strong, oafish looking man if you ever saw me in person.
True.
But I know that I can't handle certain things all by myself. So yeah, but there are people that are completely against the idea of therapy. And if you push them, that'll push them further away from it because of something that they were taught. But like if you don't go to therapy, read Kubler-Ross, doesn't care. It doesn't matter. Pick a book. Those folks have got trauma, loss, harsh or difficult changes. They got that down to a science on how to help you get through it so you don't get stuck, because a lot of people get stuck in anger in that process. And when they do, the rest of their lives are just absolutely miserable if they get stuck in that. And I'm not just talking about death. I'm also talking about divorce, custody battles. That's where I see it most in my profession. So yeah, Kubler-Ross is it's just the stages of death and dying are something that we go through all of the time. And while we want to think that we're special, and I've said this before on this podcast, and I'll repeat myself, and it's okay, we're really not that special.
No, the human experience is a very universal one.
Yeah,
And I appreciate the note of like, it doesn't always have to be death and it doesn't always have to be the loss of loved ones. Just struggles in everyday life are, you can grieve the loss of a loved one the same way you can grieve a dramatic change in your life. You brought up divorce, but I think, there are other aspects of things that we grieve that we don't even realize we lament.
The loss of opportunity.
Say that again?
The loss of opportunity. Like,
Yeah.
really looking forward to this job and I didn't get it.
Yeah, like when I went to residency, I didn't realize it, but like I really did grieve. I moved to a new city, so I grieved the loss of like friends, and not in terms of like, oh no, they're gone, but just in the sense of they're gone from me. They're no longer accessible. I grieved in the sense that I lost that time, that opportunity. That's a perfect way to put it, Ben.
I say hilariously, more interestingly, you grieved that loss. And then, how far into residency were you when we met?
I was pretty early. I mean, I feel like we knew each other while I was still in med school, but we really bonded at your birthday. Like that was early in my intern year. I think God, did I even start then? Because there was a month that I was living in my apartment before residency started, and I just used that time to like get into good shape and catch up on all the shows I wanted to watch and play all the video games I wanted to play.
What month did your residency start?
July.
So it would have been at the end of that, because my birthday is in June, so...
Yeah, so I met you, and we really bonded over basically me living a semi-bachelor life. Whenever I had a free day, which was few and far between because I got 4 of them a month, we would just hang out and do stuff.
Oh yeah, when we'd hang out, like it'd be I was also working from home, and so it'd be like random Wednesday night. Oh hey man, I'm free, and I'd just go on over.
Yep. To kind of bring it back to a more lighthearted story, you brought up the story that changed me fundamentally as a med student, that like changed me as a person. I was on my psych rotation, which if you're ever going to see some crazy stuff, the psych...
Terrible. I remember this.
Yeah.
Keep going.
There's a reason I brought it up. This story is
It's
phenomenal.
wild.
No, I just remember when he was on his psych rotation. That was insane.
Oh,
Like the stories that came out of there, and I can't believe that there's one that like
That
is
stood
better,
out, yeah.
that stood out, because I mean during that time
There's a handful of them.
I remember you and I talking a lot.
Basically, we had inpatient psych, which is not a very like super common thing, especially on the scale that we did in Tucson. They have basically wards for inpatient psych hospitalization, acute, schizophrenic like episodes, acute hallucinations, suicidality, where it just basically any situation you can imagine where somebody is undergoing a stress that basically can lead to them harming themselves or others. And so...
can I bring up something that's just very random, but something that I didn't know as a math person?
Go for it.
For a long time. So in math, an acute angle is a small angle. In medicine, acute means serious.
Yes.
So you can't... Yeah, for those who didn't know that, yes, acute means serious in medicine, not it's a little bit of. Anyway,
yeah, so acute means it happened now. Chronic means it's been going on. Is that your today's? I was today years old when I learned that.
Oh no! But I learned that way later because I knew acute angles from like trigonometry.
Oh shoot, that was better.
And so that
was better than your like copyright thing that no one knew.
I always I had to just remember these things.
So, kind of basically, inpatient psych, you rounding involves really like psych is a fun field because I've heard psychologists and psychiatrists describe it as it's like half science, half gossip, and so it's a science. We obviously know what the medications do. We understand a lot about what goes wrong in the brain and the body in a lot of psychological processes. We don't know anywhere near the scale we do compared to any other organ system. The brain is obviously that final frontier, and we know very little. And so a lot of it comes down to like conversation and really just parsing apart what made this person kind of break, what made this kind of, come to the surface. Because usually this is very rarely do people just have like an acute psychotic episode. There's usually a lot of underlying things that build up to it. I was taking care of a patient one day who I saw for the first time, and I knew it was, I just like had a weird sense because my resident at the time, he's like, hey, go see this one. And he said it in a way where I was like, okay, why this one? He's like, you'll see. Okay. And he mentioned something later. He's like, oh yeah, he's famous. I was like, what? Wait, why is he famous? He's like, we'll find out. Just go see him. I go to see this gentleman. He's pretty normal appearing, except for one thing. He doesn't have a left eye. It's just a socket. He doesn't wear a cover because he doesn't like to, because he believes that the FBI and the CIA planted a camera in his eye, and so he removed it. And he doesn't put a cover over it because he doesn't want them to be able to read his thoughts. So it was one of those things. I saw him from the right side first. So I saw him in his eye, and he turned and was like, hi, nice to meet you. I'm so-and-so. Yeah. And so basically, he is in the inpatient setting now because he has been snorting his Wellbutrin and using that to get a rush, and was in traffic trying to stop cars to question the drivers about why they're following him. So, getting better. He's not snorting his medication anymore, and we have him on a routine dosage of basically medicine that seems to be working. It's just taking its time. And that's a lot of the thing about psych. On that same rotation, I have another story where we had this patient who was just very aggressive, very not wanting to speak to anyone, very, not mute, but basically if he said anything to you, it was profanity laced, like telling you off. And then one day after he'd been on therapy for like 2-3 weeks, he's like, hey, how are you? Like, what? Did you just spoke? You talk? And he's like, yeah, thank you for taking care of me. I feel better. Like this man hadn't put more than 3 words together that wasn't fuck off or something along those lines. But that was a separate story. That was a fun one. That was just more startling because I think I told you, Ramon, about that one where I like came home and I was like, he spoke, and you're like, who?
I had no idea.
Yeah. But going back, so the reason this person was famous is in a prior city that he had lived, he had also had an acute psychotic episode, thought that the CIA was spying on him, following him, recording him. He took a package to a post office because that was the local government facility closest to him. It was the post, and he goes up to this poor clerk and teller and places this package on the counter. And he says, I have a bomb. I would like to speak to the head of the CIA. I would like them to stop monitoring me. And if they do not, I will detonate this. I can't imagine what went through that poor clerk's mind in that moment. Because to just have somebody set a foil package, it was apparently wrapped in foil, in front of you, and to say that, to realize the gravity of the situation. Basically, bomb squad gets called in. The tension is somehow diffused, and the bomb squad goes in and basically evaluates this package. And they have, I believe, a robot to open it, and they begin peeling away the foil, and they begin peeling away another covering, and it's beans and cheese. He had tried to threaten the CIA at a local post office in the city he was in with that he said was a bomb. And that is the story of the wildest, craziest, psych patient encounter I ever had. He never really did, I don't think, he didn't recover in the period of time that I was actually on that rotation. I believe he was there for a very long amount of time. But, he's what you'd consider a refractory case where, unfortunately, some people don't get better. I think that was a meaningful moment for me because I realized the gravity of, holy cow, in medicine, I'm going to see a lot of crazy stuff and a lot of crazy, situations and people in crazy circumstances. I think and that was fairly early in my third year, med school rotations. It just clicked of oh, I'm going to see some stuff. My life is not going to be normal. I'm not going to have normal stories.
There was, you should tell them about the patient. This is a much shorter one that might not have really needed to be in that particular acute treatment setting. Technically, they weren't wrong about how they were going to get to the moon.
Oh God, that's right. Oh my God, I forgot about him. So I think that was like the same week. That was a really crazy month. I was taking care of a gentleman. I remember it struck me because a lot of patients in the psych wards look pretty disheveled. They look pretty.
That's a stressful environment. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's
Hard place to be.
terrifying to have schizophrenia, to see things and hear things that other people can't see or hear. And the interesting thing is also the difference in schizophrenia between cultures. In America, it's largely negative. We hear threatening voices, really aggressive things. From what I have heard and been taught, a lot of native cultures actually hear and see like family members who are often reassuring and supportive. So there's a lot to be said in terms of cultural differences, how mental illness is manifested and perceived. But getting away from the point, this gentleman was wearing a button-up shirt. I don't think he had a tie, but he did have he had a pocket protector. That's what he had. He had a belt, he had nice pants, and he wore glasses. Very well put together. And I was the first person essentially taking his history after he'd been sort of admitted. I think I was rounding for him the first time that day. And I asked him, so what are you in for? He was like, well, I've been having strange thoughts, and I realize I just probably should get help. I was like, okay, so tell me what's going on. He's like, well, I just kind of been thinking these thoughts, these intrusive thoughts of just like, oh, maybe you can't do it. Maybe you just can't make it, and maybe you should just stop. And then maybe some thoughts of like hurting myself. I was like, okay, all right. Well, what can't you do? What are you trying to do? What's going on? As well, I'm trying to go to the moon. What? Okay. I'm in my head. I'm just like, what? Huh? And he's, yeah, like, okay. How are you going to go to the moon? I'm just going to build a rocket. Okay. Are you an engineer? Oh, no, I'm an accountant. Oh, okay. Because eventually you talk about their personal life, their jobs, those sort of things. I'm kind of skipping around because I'm trying to piece together what the hell I just heard. Okay, how are you going to do that? I'm like, oh, well, you're right. I'm probably going to need some tools.
Not wrong.
It's like, what?
So far, this is accurate. He will need some tools and probably will need to build a rocket to get to the moon.
And it's going to be an incredibly daunting task.
Yeah,
That rocket.
he was very overwhelmed. He didn't think he could do it. Like, yeah, like everything he
Might have
said.
just been able to sign off on the chart right then and there. Like, sir, I don't know. If
He wasn't the only one who didn't think he could do it.
Yeah, so that was that conversation. Eventually, I got to be like, okay, he's having some kind of acute, episode and needs help. And obviously, there's a lot going on there, a lot to unpack. But I just remember that conversation of just being like very normal, very like everything's making sense. He seems very aware and self-aware. Oh, I'm trying to go to the moon. Okay, how are you going to do that? Oh, well, I was going to build a rocket, but yeah, you're right. I'll probably need some tools.
Had he admitted himself, or can you not say?
You can. I don't think he'd identify. I believe he was like requesting admission, but you can. Arizona's weird. Arizona's like the Wild West of psych and law because you can petition anyone. You can petition a family member. You can petition a random stranger.
I'm so glad we didn't know that in college.
Yeah, like seriously. I'm glad. Maybe I shouldn't even add this to the podcast because people shouldn't know this.
Should not petition if it's not needed.
Well, yeah, like you can basically petition to have anyone admitted to a psychiatric facility for observation and for basically evaluation. And I don't know of any other state you can just do that in. And like if the state thinks it's credible, they'd show up to your door because somebody petitioned you and be like, you need to go to this inpatient psych ward, be evaluated by a physician, and if you're cleared, you're cleared. It's kind of like just being like detained by police for something you can't disprove until a doctor sees you. So it has to get done. I think there's probably a lot of those that are just like,
wow,
probably obviously nonsense. And I don't know what barriers there exist or to kind of get rid of those frivolous, obviously like nonsensical ones. But yeah, Arizona's weird when it comes to psych and like the laws around it. My understanding is a lot of the psychiatrists really don't necessarily like Arizona to practice in. But we also, I think, pay psychiatrists really well because they have to put up with this. So there's the two sides of that coin. But yeah, I forgot about that story. That's such a good. That was a meaningful moment too. That was very much like a. Not everyone is normal. Like no matter how normal somebody is on the surface, he's just struggling because he doesn't have tools.
He can't get to the moon. He doesn't have the right tools. I can't imagine how frustrating and difficult.
That's tough to cope with. You're right.
I'm going to start quoting that man.
I'm trying to go to the moon. Well, how are you gonna do it? Well, I'm probably gonna need some tools.
Oh, you're right. I'm probably going to need some tools.
Oh. Well, I've talked a lot this episode. I know I've had some crazy stories, but you guys got anything else that you want to share or anything you wanted to add? Just mushrooms, huh?
Yeah, that's all that's on my mind right now.
Dan, have you checked your bathroom for mushrooms?
Well, we have 3 bathrooms. We've checked. God, I haven't checked that guest bathroom in a while. I think
The last time you looked in the last
I should
one.
go check that bathroom. I'll be back. Give me a moment. Anyways, Pat, did you have any other stories or anything?
I don't know. I've got a lot of meaningful moments in my life, good, bad, and indifferent. It's hard to summon like a couple of them. I mean, every time I've had a client who is falsely accused of sexual assault, and how do you know that, Patrick? Well, I've had some of my clients take polygraphs. They passed them. I passed it along to the prosecutor, and they still pursued the case. And so those are pretty meaningful. Scary, because like I've said in the past, there's nothing more troubling or dangerous than representing an innocent person.
Yeah, I've heard that it's almost frustrating for defense attorneys that when you have an innocent, and they can tell if they're innocent because there'll be things like they'll show them a sketch or model of a crime scene, and they'll be like, okay, so where were you in relation to the murder weapon? And they'll be like, okay, where was the murder weapon? Because obviously they don't know if they're innocent. They can't construct a story or lies if they had nothing to do with it. How do you navigate or deal with that?
Well, I mean, I read people quite well. So I know when people are being honest about something that happened and when they're not, most times. So, yeah, I mean, that's what it boils down to. And especially people that I believe are telling me the truth, I tend to push them the hardest on the details because I know that they're being truthful and I want to make sure that I'm not misreading them. So I'll push them on stuff and come at them if I was, the prosecutor cross-examining them and showing them, well, I can demonstrate through my cross-examination of you right here off the top of my head how they're going to, find you guilty. And then when they answer everything the way that they've always answered the questions that I've asked multiple times to the point where they're probably thinking I'm not on their side. Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff. It's like, oh boy, this person's telling the truth and they are innocent, not just not guilty. So yeah, there's been a number of meaningful moments like that. And more often than not, in those cases, I've tried them. Surprisingly, the percentage of wins is very, very high.
Do you have a ratio or like a number of how many clients you think that are, I don't know, sure I'm asking you to guess, but like how many are innocent like that compared to how many you think you represent who sure they did it or what have you? I guess I'm not phrasing this question well. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not even sure if that's a question that's worth answering.
So the first question I think you should pose is how many of your clients are truly innocent versus just not guilty? And that percentage is a very narrow percentage, I think, over the time that I've represented people. Because, we have this presumption of innocence, and the state has to prove somebody guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But oftentimes people are intoxicated to the point of not remembering what happened or what they did, or impaired, so their perceptions are flawed, whereas sober people are saying certain things. So, I don't find that many of my clients are truly innocent. It's very very rare, and most of my clients have used chemicals, and that's why they're in trouble.
Makes sense.
Good people making bad decisions is what I call it. What I say call it. And so it's just getting them help if they're willing, and getting them on the right track, and which helps them get the best result possible. And I'd say a very high percentage of my clients who are in that situation respond in that way. But if you're talking about truly innocent, I didn't do it cases, it's probably a percentage in the 1 to 2 percentile.
Yeah, I was thinking it was going to be low. I didn't know if it was going to be that low.
But that's the nature of my business.
Yeah.
It's the nature of my business, though. I mean, like I said, I'm working with people who have chemical issues usually. Normal, regular, everyday folks don't purposely violate the law.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And normal, everyday folks who drink too much have a higher degree of likelihood of breaking law. And we've got so many things that are against the law these days. It troubles me what is considered a criminal behavior in this day and age, but it is what it is. Hopefully we'll be moving forward to decriminalize and release folks that truly don't deserve to be where they are. And I think everybody can agree on what I'm talking about. So,
For sure.
I was going to say that actually reminded me, I just listened to a Number File podcast, which for those people who don't know, it's math. And he was interviewing a guy who was a prisoner, and he had committed murder and pled guilty. He's like, no, I did it. And since then, and he was on meth at the time. Since then, he's gotten clean and is now deeply into mathematics. Like, he is now published in mathematics while being in prison. So, yeah, it was a very interesting conversation, and like has started a foundation to help people like him discover mathematics and like figure out their next steps if they don't know. And it was extremely interesting just to hear this man who is just trying to, like, had his life changed after being in the wrong crowds for so long by so absolutely fundamentally. Yeah.
Well, tying that back to what Patrick was saying in terms of like what's considered criminal activity, obviously that is a crime, but like the goal of prison, of jail time, is reform. Like, I feel like people, especially in this country, lose sight of the fact that your jail's not just somewhere you put a person until their timeout clock is up. Like, the goal is to actually get them to be reformed, to be a productive person, to get them off whatever chemicals or, addiction they have, to discover a new route in life. And I feel like that is the biggest sort of setback and problem with our prison system, is we don't actually try, or to my knowledge, the majority of the time, the goal is not necessarily reform. It's just where people are put.
Well, I will say this, and I can only speak for the prison system or jails that I've encountered. There are programming for people who want to participate in that. It's available to them. And much of it is voluntary, so you can make a decision to do those things or not do them. And there are programs, at least here in the state of Minnesota, that can accelerate certain people's sentences, shorten them, because they make proactive choices. So there is that component. But yeah, there is a very much, the purpose of sending someone to prison is intended to be punitive. And you choose how productive your time is. There's waiting lists for a lot of programming, though, in prison. And if you're not in there for a significant period of time, and I say more than a year and a day would be what I would suggest, which is when you get sent to prison, you may not get to have access to that programming. Although if you do get into one program, you could be out in a much quicker period of time. So it just depends on the systems and political perspectives. Who's running those facilities? Is it a private corporation? Is it the government? That's overseen by, actual humans, and of course the electorate voters for the people that are making the decisions and passing the laws. So that's a much, much bigger conversation than we could handle even in an hour and a half podcast. That's for certain.
Well, I think that is actually a good place to wrap up. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to add?
think
I have no mushrooms in my basement, even though I had pipes burst in my house a couple months ago. So
Just
thank you.
water explosions.
Thank you, Ramon, for making me more paranoid about what possibly could be happening in my house when I'm not here. Appreciate you.
Just wait until you break down that wall and it's the freaking Mushroom Kingdom, and
God, I hope not.
Yoshi comes out of your wall.
Well, thank you, listeners, for joining us. Please follow or subscribe on whatever device or podcast platform you're listening to. Come out with episodes every week. This has been Overqualified Idiots. Just wanted to say that, if you're struggling, if you're having a hard time, don't be afraid to reach out, whether it's to a loved one, whether it's to a professional, whatever medium you choose and whatever works best for you, as long as you reach out, because everybody's struggling and you don't have to be struggling alone. Thank you guys for being here and joining me for the podcast, and we will tune in next week and talk about more silly or serious things. Yeah, until then, take care.